What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, undefeated, unified WBC, IBF, welterweight world champion, superstar boxer, who is currently top 3 pound-for-pound best fighters in the world, Errol the True Spence Jr. Well, he responds to undefeated, rising, junior lightweight, title contender, who's the interim champion, undefeated Christopher Colbert. Christopher Colbert has some interesting things to say regarding Errol Spence Jr. and his upcoming fight with legendary 8th Division world champion, iconic Filipino superstar boxer Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao. He says that he's always bet against Errol Spence Jr., right? He says that Errol Spence Jr. just continues to defy the odds in his eyes because Errol Spence Jr. essentially is limited because he's very flat-footed. So he says that there's a few fights he picked against Errol Spence Jr. He says that he even picked 4th Division world champion Mexican superstar boxer Mikey Garcia over Errol Spence Jr. Then he went to retract it and he stated, did I? Or I don't remember, right? So he says, I won and lost a lot of money when it comes to Errol Spence Jr. This is what Christopher Colbert had to say. Well, Errol Spence Jr., he responds and he says, well, this is simply because you also signed with the PBC, Premier Boxing Champions, the founder and advisor Al Heyman. And Christopher Colbert, he stated that, Danny Garcia is only choosing Errol Spence Jr. to beat Manny Pacquiao. Danny Garcia, 2 Division world champion, superstar boxer who fought Errol Spence and is also signed to the PBC Premier Boxing Champion. So Christopher Colbert, he stated that Errol Spence is being picked by Danny Garcia to beat Manny Pacquiao simply because he's a PBC fighter, and he said that Danny Garcia is essentially, a PBC fan, and he's just going to ride with the PBC. So Danny Garcia, he responded. He said, "Well, you with the PBC? Well," he says, "Yeah, well, not on the same level. He's the chosen one." So Errol Spence, he responds, and Errol Spence says, "You're just mad because the PBC continues to throw you the scraps," essentially is what he had to say. I'm paraphrasing. He says that they putting you out in the middle of nowhere in the barn, right? They're not giving you the best fights. They have you fighting in Los Angeles, in LA. You're born here in New York. You're from Brooklyn, okay? You're from New York. You're building up your fan base, and essentially you don't have a big fan base outside of New York and outside of the East Coast, definitely. And they putting you in a fight in LA, okay? So essentially, they're not showing much interest in your abilities and your future. He has a fight coming up this Saturday against Nyumba, King Tug. It's a replacement. He was supposed to face 3 Division world champion, former Olympic gold medalist Yuriorkis Gamboa, but now he's going to face off against King Tug in his next fight. And so replacement this upcoming Saturday, but it's taking place in LA at the Staples Center, okay? I don't remember, StubHub Center, Staples Center, but it's happening in LA. It's not going to take place on the East Coast. So he doesn't have a big fan base there. So Errol Spence, he responded, he said, well, you just sound bitter because essentially they're throwing you the scraps, okay? And he stated that he was picking Manny Pacquiao. He's Team Pacquiao. He stated that he's always picked against Errol Spence Jr. This is the same interview in which, he went at Olympic bronze medalist, former WBC American heavyweight world champion, superstar boxer Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder as well. He stated that, Deontay Wilder is, he has some very, very choice words for Deontay Wilder when describing Deontay Wilder. And he stated that, he's Team Fury, okay, all the way. If you go back and you look at Christopher Colbert's upbringing, if you look at Christopher Colbert's past and the journey, Christopher Colbert, he stated that he's Mexican, okay? He's clearly African American, but he stated that he's Mexican because his trainer, who was a great guy, great trainer, is of Mexican descent. So he stated that he's a Mexican fighter. If you ever watch him, he garners the Mexican colors when he comes out. Now he wears a whole bunch of flamboyant, flashy colors. But he stated that, he's Mexican, okay? Calls himself the Black Mexican, so on and so forth, okay? So Christopher Colbert, he seems to go against the grain often. Okay, so he stated that, he's going for Manny Pacquiao, and he's always picked against Errol Spence. He stated that he picked Danny Garcia, who's a good friend of his, to beat Errol Spence. He says, but he kept it 100 with Danny Garcia and told Danny Garcia, if you don't let your hands go, you're not going to win the fight. But he still was going with Danny Garcia. Now, in that case, it's understandable because Danny Garcia is a friend of his. So he stated that he was going with Danny Garcia to beat Errol Spence. But he's always picking against Errol Spence. And, Errol Spence just simply defines the odds. So Errol Spence has some very choice words and letting him know, listen, you're just essentially bitter because they're throwing you the scraps, okay? So, he's on the rise. He had a knockout. He's very flashy, very flamboyant, pink hair, yellow hair, red hair. He, looks to attract as much attention and garner as much attention as possible. He has some big fights on the horizon. He stated that Errol Spence is, boring, and Errol Spence responded by saying that they throwing you to the straps, the scraps, because you are boring. He stated that his good friend, fellow, junior lightweight title contender, who is former featherweight WBO champion, silver medalist in Olympics in superstar boxer Shakur Stevenson. Okay, he says that Shakur Stevenson is very boring. He says that Shakur Stevenson, he doesn't get hit. He swims without getting wet. But at the end of the day, he's very, very boring. He's not fan friendly. But in the same token, he stated that, he is very disciplined himself, but he would let his hands go if it came down to him and Shakur Stevenson. He believes that he won't pick against Shakur Stevenson. He was asked if Shakur Stevenson could beat the likes of the fellow undefeated 3-division world champion now, superstar boxer Gervonta Tank Davis just beat, and former junior welterweight WBA champion, regular champion, and Mario Barrios. He says, do you believe that Shakur Stevenson could beat Mario Barrios? And he stated, absolutely, but it would be a very, very boring fight that nobody wanted to watch because Shakur Stevenson is just boring. He doesn't get hit at all, if any, but he's a boring fighter to watch, and nobody wants to watch that. With that said, he has some big fights on the horizon. He said that Gervonta Tank Davis, they'll keep him away from him. He said that, he'll fight Shakur Stevenson, but he'll beat Shakur Stevenson and be more exciting. So he had a lot of interesting takes, a lot of interesting standpoints. But Errol Spence shown versatility. He doesn't believe Errol Spence has versatility, but he's shown versatility. If he picked Danny Garcia to beat Errol Spence, then why would he tell Danny Garcia if he didn't let his left hook go and let his hands go often, he was going to lose the fight? Well, because Errol Spence is special. Now, he did acknowledge and say, Errol Spence is definitely, that dude, he's that guy, he says, but, he just picks against him. He doesn't really have a reason for picking against Errol Spence other than the fact that he feels like Errol Spence is a flat-footed fighter, that's limited, so he feels like Manny Pacquiao is going to dance circles around Errol Spence. Errol Spence, 5'9.5", 72-inch arm reach. Errol Spence is 31 years of age. Manny Pacquiao is 42 years of age at 5'5" with a 67-inch arm reach. So Errol Spence is going to have a 5-inch arm reach advantage. He's going to have nearly a 5-inch height advantage. He's a southpaw as well as Manny Pacquiao. He has a beautiful jab and power. He's more versatile than Manny Pacquiao, and he's 11 years younger than Manny Pacquiao. But yet, he says that Manny Pacquiao is going to dance circles around Errol Spence Jr., and he says that he wouldn't be surprised, essentially, if Errol Spence got stopped, okay? Just Manny Pacquiao is that special. Now, he's not the only one that feels that way, that Manny Pacquiao, he turned back the hands of times when he fought former unified welterweight world champion, superstar boxer Keith one-time Thurman in his last fight. That was July 2019. That's the last time we seen him in the ring. Also, that's a huge factor is Manny Pacquiao's inactivity. He hasn't been in the ring for 2 years, okay? We don't know if Father Time is undefeated. We don't know if Father Time is going to suddenly tap Manny Pacquiao on his shoulders, okay? And let him know, listen, it's time for us to step away from being a professional athlete. So we just don't know how that's going to play out, okay? But Errol Spence has all the advantages in his court. This is no walk in the park. Manny Pacquiao is a legend in the sport of boxing, for sure, but this is definitely no walk in the park for Errol Spence. But Errol Spence, technical skill boxers give Manny Pacquiao trouble. Errol Spence is one of the best technically skilled boxers with one of the highest ring IQs in the sport of boxing. So with that said, Errol Spence definitely has what it takes to beat Manny Pacquiao come August 21st. So we got to see how this unfolds and plays out. Christopher Colbert is attracting a lot of attention to himself amongst his peers that he may not want to garner, or maybe he just does. Maybe he wants to be the villain like Floyd Mayweather. Who knows? But that's all I got for y'all, man. Make sure you hit the like button, drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like your shady videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.
It is your boy Jada Kiss. Make sure you check out Blue Blood Sports TV. It's going down.